Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Self-Care Sunday with Tiffany Wee. And this morning, we are going to talk about weight loss, different weight loss strategies, including the ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, and then my own program called the Mind Body Slim Method. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. And you would have noticed that yes, last week we didn't actually have a show because phase 2 started. So yeah, I was also excitedly, going out and about with my kids because I think, yeah, I'm not crazy about the shopping or the dining, but we really miss the great outdoors. And so last week we actually went to the beach. So this is what I plan to be doing. We'll have a show every fortnightly from now on. So do look out for us every other week. Yeah. Okay. So coming back to the topic. So why I decided to do this topic was because yes, with the reopening of phase 2, right? When phase 2 started, I think because some people started to have to get to work and then they realized that, when they put on their work clothes, because we've all been hibernating at home sort of, right, in our home clothes, when we, had to put on like sort of the out of house work clothes, then some people found that they have, gained some weight and started to, privately message me to ask, okay, so what can we do and all, because they heard that I had a weight loss program. So I thought, okay, why not do a segment on this for today's show, and then also talk about other diets that are quite the rage, and from there you can see the pros and cons and weigh for yourself whether each individual program is the right one for you. Okay, so without further ado, let me start by going straight to the presentation because I found that this format actually works really well, yeah? Okay. All right, so notice here that I put today's topic as mind, body, weight loss. So when it comes to weight loss, right, I think a lot of people equate it with, the physical body, like, losing weight or, at least inches, right? But what has the mind got to do with weight loss and, in fact, more importantly, weight management? So I'll talk about this in a little bit, yeah? Okay, so stay tuned. And in fact, at the end of the show, I will in fact be doing a mindful eating practice. Somebody actually asked in Facebook if I will be doing it. So yes, I will, because I think that is, in fact, the reason why I went all the way to Belgium to do teacher training in this particular aspect of mindfulness. And I think it is sort of the missing key to a lot of dietary programs out there. Okay. Okay, so first of all, those of you who are joining me for the first time today, I thought I would like to just spend a few moments just introducing myself once again, and why I'm even doing this show. Like, who am I to, even do a show on health and wellness, right? So hang on. Okay, so I'm actually trained as a naturopath, which typically means that I'm trained as a nutritionist, a herbalist. And because as a natural health practitioner, we look at mind, body, and spirit as being important in terms of holistic healing, we are often also trained in some aspect of a mental emotional therapy. So for me, I'm trained in Reiki and also mindfulness. Yeah. So as you can see, with this background and experience, these are the various ways that I have been able to use what I've been taught. So it includes, some workshops at Google. I've also worked with the Resorts World teams, including here Chef Joel Robuchon, where I planned a specific menu with the restaurants. I do, talks and workshops at places like Metro, so on and so forth, and of course, I do a lot of private consultations with clients that come through the door with a whole myriad of different health conditions, anything from childhood eczema all the way to chronic health conditions. And weight management is but one of them. Yeah. And even when it comes to weight management, I actually look at the person holistically to see what else is happening for them. And it's with this functional approach that I believe is able to help my clients to the best of my abilities. Yeah. Okay. And falling back on my training, right? These are some of these naturopathic medicine principles that we actually fall back on. And I would want to quickly run through them because I think this is critical as to why I take a functional approach to my treatments and recommendations, be it a chronic health condition or whether it's weight management. To me, I feel it's all the same. Okay. All right. So yes, to begin with, we try not to do any harm, right? So anything that we recommend, if it cannot help in the very least, it should not do more harm. Yeah. Okay, and then next you will see identify and treat the causes. So yes, whilst you come to me for a specific symptom, I am not only going to just help you relieve that symptom and, kind of like put on a temporary band-aid, right, so to speak. But rather, I think it's actually very important to look and nail down the root causes so that the treatment and your relief of that symptom becomes long-term as opposed to just a temporary fix, and then maybe weeks later or months later the symptom returns. So that would not be a complete healing in my in the way that I was trained. Yeah. Okay, and then the healing power of nature. So yes, as much as possible, we try to use natural methods which are usually least harmful to bring about therapy. Yeah. Doctor as teacher. So yes, this part is kind of why I choose to do this wellness series to empower basically my clients or even the public in general with information so that they are able to make conscious choices for themselves. Yeah. So on this note, what I want to say here as a disclaimer is that I'm not any guru, right? I'm just trying to present the information as best as possible to my own knowledge, and I do encourage you to use this information to spur on your own research. Okay, so don't just take my word. What I would like you to do after this show, if you found any aspect of it interesting, is to actually do more research, and then from there you can kind of like siphon out what really speaks to you, and I think that approach would be the best. And of course, if you were interested to know more, you can always email me. Yeah. Okay, so treating the whole person. So this would come back to what I will speak about later, the mind aspect, the mental, emotional, and some might even say spiritual aspect of healing. Yeah, not just the physical body, but looking at the person in this kind of holistic way. Okay, and finally, prevention. Yeah, okay, so we always say, right, that prevention is better than cure. So this 6 guiding principles sort of, kind of like carry through my work, which I hope, to benefit my clients. Yeah. Okay. So on that note, let me then go into the topic of today. Yeah. And I will start by going through deciphering some of these pros and cons of the more popular diets. Yeah. And let's start with the ketogenic diet because, of course, it's all the rage now. A lot of people are actually, thinking about doing it, or if not, they have already done it. And hence, when it comes to weight management, a lot of people do ask me, is ketogenic diet the way to go? So let me go through some of the facts and then you can kind of decide for yourself. Okay. All right. So to begin with, maybe some people might not know this. I think it's important to highlight that the ketogenic diet was never created for the purpose of weight management or weight loss. In fact, in the 1920s, it was first discovered to be quite a good therapy for people with neurodegenerative conditions. For example, epilepsy, yeah? And even in cases like multiple sclerosis and Alzheimer's. Currently, a lot of benefits has been shown when patients actually put on this particular diet. So I would say yes, from that point of view, if it was used as a therapeutic diet, then definitely there is a place for the ketogenic diet. Yeah. Okay, and then how about for weight loss? Does it work? Okay, so I would say here that yes, even I would agree that yes, it does work for weight loss. And what it does is that it basically switches, right, the body's primary source of fuel from using glucose to using ketones. So it kind of like pushes the body into a state of ketosis, and by burning fat, it actually helps achieve weight loss results. Yeah. Okay. So you would see some other benefits related to the ketogenic diet when it comes to weight loss would be, for one, well, yes, you're actually burning fat. Yeah. So you're not just losing water, you are effectively losing fat. Okay, which I think is the key thing here to remember. And yes, it does help with suppressing hunger because of, basically the very, very low intake of sugar and carbohydrates, which is usually what causes the energy fluctuations, right? That leads to cravings, I would say, or hunger. So by restricting sugar intake, it does achieve that purpose as well. Yeah. And then, as already mentioned, it helps stabilizes blood sugar. So in fact, for people with very serious diabetic diagnosis, right now, those who have been diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 also, yes, it has been shown to be beneficial. Yeah. So I would say yes, as a therapy for some of these health conditions, it is probably something to think about. Yeah. Okay, so then there's no questions with regards to whether it works as a weight loss method. I'm here to play basically the devil's advocate, right? And actually ask you, as a individual, right? Is this the right weight loss program for you though? Like, is it the best weight loss method that possibly is out there to help you with your weight loss? And I think not just with the ketogenic diet, but with any kind of health program, weight loss program that you're about to embark on, I think there are these 4 key questions that you should ask yourself. Yeah. So I will run through them quite a few times today, so that probably by the end of the show, you will have like a good idea of the 4 things to look out for when it comes to any sort of weight loss or dietary program. So the first one I think is important to ask yourself is it sustainable? Is it something that you can do for long enough at least to achieve the results that you are seeking? Okay, so when it comes to the ketogenic diet, let's take a look, okay, in terms of how sustainable is it for you as an individual. Okay, so coming back right to how you actually should be doing it in terms of what you get to eat. Yeah, so the recommendation is that your diet should be up to 75% fat, only 20% proteins, and 5% carbohydrates. Yeah, so carbohydrates includes all your sugars, your refined carbohydrates, as well as your vegetables, your fruits. Yeah. Okay, so sometimes, right, I see people posting up pictures on Facebook with like a huge steak, and it seems like meal after meal they're eating a lot of meat, or predominantly meat, for their meals, and they claim that they are on the ketogenic diet. I will be very honest, to be frank, I do not think that eating that way would have helped these people achieve ketosis. Why? Because it is not meant to be a high protein diet, unlike, for example, Atkins or perhaps the paleo diet. Yeah. With the ketogenic diet, or at least the proper standard way of doing it, it is really meant to be only 20%. So the majority of your intake, your food intake, should actually be fats, not like a huge piece of steak with just a little bit of butter on the top. No, in fact, it should be if I was to put it crudely, a huge slab of butter with a small tiny piece of meat. So kind of like, yeah, I think people have the wrong idea. Like, they eat a high protein, low carb diet and they think they're on a ketogenic diet. But I doubt that they will actually have been able to push their body into that true state of ketosis, which typically takes 3 to 4 weeks to achieve. Yeah, and Dr. Mark Hyman, who is a functional doctor, actually says that in fact, even if you did test with the urine test sticks, it is not actually a true reflection of whether you have achieved ketosis. He was actually saying that a blood prick test is actually more indicative, but how many people will actually put themselves through all that just to check if they are on really truly in a state of ketosis? So I think what happens is that most people just kind of like wing it and hope that they are. Yeah. So this is something to ask yourself: are you truly able to eat a diet for a long period of time, where not just one meal of the day, but every meal of the day, basically your plate, right, would have to consist of 75% fat? Yeah, I think that's something important to ask yourself. Okay, so okay, this is like a typical healthy way of doing the ketogenic diet. Why I say this is, again, pointing back to how sustainable is it, yeah? Not just in terms of the kind of food that you get to eat, but the cost of it as well. So I'll come to that shortly. So if you look at this food pyramid, right, so you would see that right at the bottom, yeah, so it's kind of like the reverse, right, of the traditional food pyramid that we know of, where fat is right at the top and supposed to be like the least amount. Yeah, so here fat is right at the bottom, and of course you're encouraged to take good fats. Yeah, so things like avocado, coconut oil, grass-fed butter, pasteurized free-range eggs, so on and so forth. Okay, and then after that is your antioxidants. And if you see, proteins is meant to be a moderate intake. Okay, it's not meant to be like the sort of like at the bottom where you eat a lot of protein. It's only meant to be moderate, 20% only. Yeah. Okay. So then and then right at the top would be things like your sweeteners. Yeah. Okay, so in another format, so different foods to enjoy on a ketogenic diet, as you can see, is organic grass-fed meat, wild-caught salmon, yeah, wild salmon, and then of course your healthy oils, your avocados, and so on. So one thing I do ask people who ask me, do I think the ketogenic diet is recommended for weight loss? And I ask them, so how much do you spend in terms of your budget on marketing? And can you truly afford to eat organic grass-fed meats, wild-caught salmon, grass-fed butter, and dairy for a protracted period of time? Because, seriously, in Singapore, to eat that way, it does cost you quite a bit. So I mean, when you first start off, you might be like, all right, I'm going to be like, 100% on this diet, and I'm going to do it the right way. So, you kind of like start off with the right intentions, and you find all your resources to get all this wild caught fish and, grass-fed meats. But after a while, it sort of starts to affect you, and you might think like, oh, maybe I should start to cut corners here and then. Maybe I don't really have to go for the best, as long as, I just kind of stick with the ketosis or the ketogenic principles and try to stick in ketosis, right? So after a while, what I find is that I find people eating things like roast pork, fried chicken, so not so healthy forms of meat and not so healthy forms of oil and fats. Yeah, because I'll be honest, like if you think about it, 75% fat means that it is not enough to just get that little bit of fat from whatever meats you're eating. You literally have to pile on additional fats at every meal. And as us locals say, after a while, when you're consuming so much fats, you start to feel a bit jelat, so it's like you have to ask yourself as an individual, how long can you honestly do this for? And does the results actually, keep you motivated enough to continue with it for, this protracted period of time? Yeah. And then the other flip side of the ketogenic diet, as you will see in this next picture here, is the foods to toss out. So this is the other side that I also ask people, are you able to stick with this as well for a long period of time? Because why? You are not actually able to have much sugar. And of course, when we talk about sugar, we're not talking about just the kind that you add to your coffee and tea, right? Because sugar is found in so many things. anytime you eat a processed food, I'll be honest, it probably does contain sugar or carbs in some form or other. Even things that does not seem to be high in sugar, for example, things like tomato sauce, right? It tastes sour, but mind you, there's actually quite a lot of sugar in it. Things that seems to be healthy, like these fat-free yogurts, again, they are actually filled with sugar, some more than a canned soda. So, there are very insidious ways that sugar actually comes into the diet. So how restrictive or how careful are you going to be for a long period of time to be able to achieve this ketosis? And it falls back also on your social life, right? When anytime that you go out and eat, how careful do you have to be to ensure that at every meal your sugar intake does not go beyond 5% of that food intake. Yeah, so things like processed foods, alcohol, to be honest, is another big one, because yes, people do have a social drink, I think, every now and then, and to be told like you can't really have much of it during this entire period of the diet, I think for some people they do find that quite difficult. Yeah, so again, I'm just saying here to keep asking yourself, how sustainable is this program really? Okay. And then on this note, so I've said, right, there are many insidious ways that sugar actually finds itself into our diets. So even if you were consciously trying to avoid it, there could be some pitfalls in the sense that you might, I think you would know to avoid very obvious things like chocolates, pastries, bread, ice cream. But then there might be some forms where you are not even able to identify and hence unknowingly eat more than your allowed sugar quota. Okay, so how many names for sugar do you think manufacturers have come up with so as to mask the name sugar to trick consumers into buying so-called these processed foods without knowing, right? Any guesses? Yeah. So you can actually put it in the comment box. Okay. All right, so I've had people guessing like 50, 100, so on and so forth. The actual number is 309, and I'm sure it's 309 and counting. Yeah, so some names you might actually be familiar with. For example, cane sugar, corn syrup. Corn syrup is actually a very nasty one, and it is put into so many of your processed foods like cereals, including your 2-in-1 coffees, 3-in-1 coffees. But there are some, I would say, that are more tricky, and you might not even recognize that it is a form of sugar. And hence, if you even bothered to look at the ingredients on a food packaging, even if you were to see these names, right, like mannitol, or dextrol, things like that, it might not come across as a form of sugar to you, and hence, it might kind of like just be lost on you, and you might not even realize that you're consuming that amount of sugar. Yeah. Okay, so as I've mentioned earlier, ketchup was one of these insidious ways sugar finds itself into a lot of our food intake. It includes things, as I've mentioned, that could come across as being healthy, like yogurt, cereals. Again, Dr. Mark Hyman is somebody who really doesn't like cereals, because he says like it is, I think, up to 80% sugar, if I didn't quote wrongly. Yeah, so even things like protein bars that seems to be a healthy alternative, but actually contains tons and tons of sugar. So what I'm trying to say here is, again, how likely is it that you are able to just strip yourself of all these different foods? Yeah. And as I've mentioned, it is not just sugar in that processed form, but in fact, it's been found that flour. So those of us, I often tell my clients, in Singapore, right, you just throw a stone, right, and it will probably hit like 5 different bread shops. There's like so many different bread shops all around the island, littered all across the neighborhoods, right? And you're really, really spoiled for choice. Yeah. And these days, they have this open baking stations, right, where even just walking past, you can smell the whiff of the baked goods, and then it kind of lures you into the shop. So it's really kind of difficult to avoid I would say sugar these days, yeah, in the flour forms. Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, because of the polling, there's some noise from outside. Okay, so bear with us for a while with that. Okay, so as you see here, why flour could be even worse than just normal sugar, processed sugar, is because it actually raises your blood sugar even more than table sugar. So yes, including your wholemeal forms. Yeah, so this is something to think about. Yeah, especially as if you watched my show last week, I also talk about gluten. So a lot of these flour type products, of course, are made from wheat, which is filled with gluten, which comes with it, another myriad of different challenges when it comes to health. Okay. All right, so then having, kind of like gone through some of these pros and cons and do's and do nots of the ketogenic diet, if it was unsustainable, then what are some of the consequences? So what I'm trying to say here is, if you started to do it and then, maybe after a few weeks or a few months, you decided like, oh, I can't do this anymore, I'm going to stop. Are there any consequences, that you might have heard of, that you've, come across in terms of like people have done it? And then think for yourself, is this something that I would want to happen with me? Yeah. So I will be honest, one of the very common things that seems that I hear of that happens when I have clients who have done it before, have come and told me, one would be, well, the weight rebounds. Yeah. And I would say that at the end of this show, I would highlight one of the typical reasons why the weight often rebounds when it comes to any weight loss program, including the ketogenic diet. Yeah. Okay, and then of course, I've also had clients who developed gout as well after having been on a ketogenic diet for months, because unfortunately they did not do it in that recommended way of eating all your wild caught salmon and grass-fed beef, right? They ate it like sort of like a typical Singaporean way with our local delights. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the fried unhealthy stuff. So yes, if that is how you're doing the ketogenic diet, then there might be some health consequences, well, not just when you stop, but even whilst you're doing it. So something to think about, okay? So on that note, I will want to talk a little bit more about the nutritional aspect of the ketogenic diet. And the question I pose is it a balanced diet, yeah? Okay, so in school we are often taught, to eat the rainbow. Yes, why? Because they contain, lots of vitamins, minerals, and all these antioxidants and enzymes that are very beneficial for our health, right? So if you take a look at this rainbow, you will see that it consists of all the different fruits and vegetables that exist in these natural forms, yeah? So not your artificial colorings, but literally all the plant natural substances, and typically they are your antioxidants that are important to include as part of a well-balanced diet. So with 5%, food intake falling under this category, under carbs, are you truly able to eat this rainbow is what I'm asking, okay? All right, and then next, fiber, okay? So fiber is extremely important, yeah, when it comes to these various health benefits that you see here. So for example, maintaining bowel regularity. So especially for women, a lot of us are constipated. Of course, it also maintains general digestive bowel health, yeah. It also helps to actually absorb cholesterol and flush it out of our system. So yes, helps to keep cholesterol levels in a healthy range. It helps with weight management and also controls blood sugar. Okay, so again, fiber of course comes from plant sources. So again, if you're only able to eat 5% of your diet as plant-based foods, are you truly able to get enough fiber into your diet? And if not, would any of these health benefits, be affected in terms of your own particular pre-existing health condition? Okay. All right, and then the other thing to think about is in terms of acid alkalinity. So, a lot of people also start drinking all your alkaline water, right? So I ask people when they come and ask me, oh, is it a good idea to drink alkaline water? And I ask them, well, I think it really boils down to how is your typical diet in the first place? Are you eating a lot of foods that are acidifying, or are you eating a lot of plant-based, dark, leafy, green type foods already? Because if you are, or if you're more like vegan, then more than likely your internal pH would be more alkaline. But yes, if you are kind of overindulging in a lot of your meat-based products, which are unfortunately all acidifying. But having said that, there is also, a spectrum in terms of how acidic it is. So for example, things like your beef, pork, shellfish would usually create more acidity, whereas things that are less acidic would be your fish, especially with the omega fatty acids. I think that is a place for fish intake. Okay, having said that, typically more of your alkalizing type foods would be your plant-based foods once again. So if again, you're only eating 5% of these, then, more than likely you'll be pushing your body towards the more acidic side, especially if you're taking a lot of meats, especially your red meats. And why is it dangerous anyway to have a acidic body? So one of the things that I've talked about previously in my bone health show is that if your, blood pH starts to get a bit acidic, one of the ways that the body counteracts that effect is to start actually leaching out your alkaline minerals, to use your alkaline minerals, things like your calcium, to help buffer and bring the acidity, that pH back into balance. And hence, osteoporosis could be one risk of an overly acidic internal body pH. So again, if you're eating that much meat and meat-based protein, right, then could this be something that might affect you personally? So something to think about here. Okay. And then, of course, animal farming over time, I would say there's, it's no secret, right, that as you can see in this graph, animal protein is not quite as it was in its natural form years or decades ago. And there is a reason for it, So unless you're eating, 100% organic, then more than likely you're eating non-organic foods. Some of the things that might find its way into your body in addition to the actual food would be things like your antibiotics, hormones, pesticides, so on and so forth. So if your diet is going to start being very meat-based, again, something to think about, okay? All right, and then in terms of what I've mentioned up to this point are sort of like the side effects. So how about the actual, effects of this particular diet, the ketogenic diet? Does it, remember one of the 6 principles of naturopathic health? And I think for medical, in the medical students as well, right, is one of the things that we hear by is what we recommend doing no harm. So this is one of the questions I fall back. Okay. So it is said that if you're not doing it the correct way in the first few weeks of embarking on a ketogenic diet, you might actually suffer from what is known as the keto flu. So these are some of the symptoms that you might actually experience: fatigue, brain fog, bad breath, so on and so forth. So something to also consider, is this something that you would be able to tolerate in terms of your work, in terms of your personal life and personal health, as you embark on this program. And then, of course, there has been certain research that has also linked this particular diet and its very restrictive way of eating to more serious health conditions. And I think it really boils down to the individual in terms of how are you doing it? Are you really doing it as per the recommended healthy way, or are you kind of like cutting corners and doing it in a less healthy way, which then more than likely, yes, would lead to certain health issues, okay? So again, I encourage you to do more research on this in your own time. Okay, and then the final question that I kind of like, propose for people to ask when they embark on any program is to ask themselves and consider, especially for weight loss, is this a complete solution? So what I mean by that is, okay, when it comes to weight loss, I think a lot of people, well, the initial goal would be just to lose the existing weight that you have, right? But then, once you have shed that weight, the next question that a lot of my clients come and ask me, or potential customers come and ask me, is how can I ensure that I will not rebound in weight? How can I ensure that whatever weight I've lost, I will be able to maintain it? So this is what I mean. When it comes to any program, you should ask yourself, is it a complete solution in the sense that whatever results that you have achieved, are you able to achieve those results using this particular program? Has it taught you anything in terms of helping you maintain those results? Yeah. So as you can see, I say that to be continued. Because next I will go into intermittent fasting and the pros and cons of it as well. Yeah. Okay, so when it comes to intermittent fasting, there are various ways to do it. I think some of the more typical ways would be the 5 and 2, where people eat normal, and then they fast for 2 days. Then there are those that fast for an entire day, and then go on to eat normally for a few days, and then they start this whole 24-hour fasting again. And I think the most common one that a lot of people adopt would be the time restricted one. So the 16/8 I think is sort of like the norm before people start getting more restricted. Yeah. So usually what that would be that they would eat for a certain number of hours. So for example, like 8 hours, and then they will fast for 16 hours. Yeah. So typically, I think they start by eating around 12 o'clock, and then maybe the last meal would be at 8 o'clock, and then they don't eat anything until the next day. So if you think about it, yeah, actually quite doable. Yeah. Okay, and yes, it does basically bring the body into a state of ketosis, and in that way helps stimulate weight loss as well. So that is I do not deny it. So it does work for weight loss. And actually, when it comes to the intermittent fasting benefits, I also actually, and in fact, I would say I endorse intermittent fasting for weight loss more than I would the ketogenic diet, because I think it is a lot less restrictive. Yeah, and it has been shown to be linked to many other health benefits beyond the weight loss, which I think a lot of people do it for. So for example, it improves brain function, heart health, liver health, digestive health as well. So I would say that in that sense, that overall a lot of benefits beyond just weight that I would recommend intermittent fasting. Yeah. Okay, so then again, I ask you the same few questions that you should be questioning yourself. First of all, is this program sustainable? So in terms of your own lifestyle, in terms of your own health condition, pre-existing conditions, is this something that you can do for a protracted period of time in order to lose the weight that you have in mind? Yeah, okay. And I would say probably it is, yeah, a little bit more sustainable in terms of the fact that it is not so restrictive in terms of, is it a balanced diet? So when it comes to this question, right, if you ask me in terms of the intermittent fasting, strictly speaking, I think a lot of people actually embark on it because there is no restriction in terms of what foods you can eat in those hours or the days that you're allowed to eat. Yeah. So I think that is the part that fits into a lot of people's lifestyle, where they find it easier. It is not so restrictive, right? They can just kind of eat whatever they want. But then that's that double-edged sword, right? In the sense that, okay, if I'm allowed to eat anything I want, do I really just go ahead and eat anything I want? And in fact, there is no specific restriction, even in terms of quantity. So do you really just go all out to eat whatever amounts you want of whatever foods you want, is what I'm trying to ask here. And I think that is the question you have to ask yourself in terms of whether this would then be a balanced diet. Yeah, because yes, if you were going to do it in sort of like a healthy way to make sure that your food intake is still pretty balanced, then yes, this probably would be achievable. But if you were thinking of using intermittent fasting as sort of like a ticket for you to just junk out on all your favorite junk foods, then probably not, right? So this becomes a very individual case by case scenario, I would say. And then in that sense, similarly, as I've said, as I've mentioned with the ketogenic diet, would it then really do no harm? So yes, if you were to go and eat a balanced diet filled with your green leafy alkaline type vegetables, if you're going to have like good quality meats, like for example your fish, then yes, probably it would not do you any harm, and in fact do you lots of good, right? But if you were going to just eat any old way you like, lots of fast food, junk food, because yes, in fact, it is allowed, right? So-called in intermittent fasting. Then I think you would likely again pay the so-called the price for it later on if you're going to keep doing this for a long period of time. Yeah. Okay. And then I ask the question again: is it a complete solution? Which I will leave for later. Okay. So, all right, having come now to then my particular program. So yes, because as a nutritionist, as a naturopath, a lot of people, find their way to me because they are trying to lose weight. So I think, yeah, it's about 10 years ago now, I was taught a very specific weight loss protocol by a naturopathic doctor from US. And I've since then sort of fine-tuned it further into a product of my own, so as to be able to help my clients lose weight in a holistic manner, but not just lose the weight, but also look at how I can help keep that lost weight off. Yeah. So this is sort of like my program, which is a rapid weight loss and detox program. Okay. So as mentioned, I look at any health condition, including weight loss, from a functional perspective. So what do I mean by functional perspective? Okay, so the typical definition would be like, unlike the conventional orthodox medical approach, right, which looks more at disease from a pathological perspective, whereby they strive to diagnose a condition and then, of course, sort of give a sort of drug treatment to help you relieve that particular condition, right? Functional medicine takes a more individualized approach in the sense that it doesn't just look at the symptom, it looks at the person as a whole, right? So we are looking at that root cause. We are looking at the person as not just your physical condition, but also your mental, emotional, all the different factors that comes in terms of your lifestyle to help to kind of like help you get a true, I think, a true treatment and approach that is, starting from the base. So helping you to rebalance some of those things some of these factors that could have contributed to your condition in the first place, yeah, so that you get a more sustained solution, yeah. So if you see, right, from the medical, from the functional medicine approach, right, usually what you present with is but what we call the tip of the iceberg. So a lot of things have happened usually over a long period of time to actually have and kind of like ended up with the end result of that disease, which is a symptom, right, of all these underlying imbalances. So what are these things? Could be things like inflammation, digestive issues, hormonal imbalance. And if you do not actually do anything to help resolve these underlying imbalances, then typically what happens is that these symptoms are not truly resolved, and even if you were able to relieve them with a temporary band-aid, then again they might just reoccur over time or manifest in a different form. Yeah, so it's important to look at all these underlying imbalances, because when we have a symptom like a pain or inflammation, the body is sending us a signal that, hey, something is not right here, so please resolve this so that I do not have to manifest this symptom to show you that something is wrong, right? So if you just kind of like slap on some cream, put on a band-aid, you are actually kind of like not really listening to your body. You're not appreciating enough, I think, that the body is trying to kind of help you help yourself. So yeah, we should actually dig deeper and treat the root causes as well, that the body is trying to kind of like achieve that homeostatic balance that all of us actually, if given that right condition, is able to achieve, yeah, most of us, yeah. Okay, so that is what we try to do in terms of naturopathic health and healing as well. So as you can see here, again, under this functional medicine, right, one condition can be caused by many things, right, as we've just mentioned. And similarly, one cause can actually be a result of many conditions, yeah. So it is important, hence, to look at every person as an individual and approach their healing in this sort of like rounded manner, as opposed to just like, you know, a one size fits all kind of approach where, oh, you have this condition, I will just give you this solution. So it is not as simple as that, is what I'm trying to say here, yeah. And similarly, when it comes to weight loss as well, why you are carrying the excess weight, typically it is not because of hunger, like stomach hunger, right? There are many things that have influenced you as an individual to have brought about this excess weight. So it is also then important to look at identifying these root causes and then helping you remedy them so that you can achieve weight loss and also maintain it. Okay. All right, so is my program a complete solution? So let's take a look, yeah? So some of the things that typically affect weight, and I think a lot of people would have identified more the physiological aspects of weight, yeah? In terms of like what has led to their weight gain. However, the part that I think a lot of us do not really take into consideration when it comes to weight is the behavioral aspect of it, which again, at the end, I will use some examples to show you what I mean by that, okay? So when it comes to physiological factors that might impede weight loss, it will be things like, of course, you know, the very typical would be kind of like an imbalanced dietary intake, lack of exercise. However, there are other things that are usually happening that is contributing to the weight gain that a lot of typical diet programs out there do not address. So things like, for example, like sort of like your brain wiring in terms of how it metabolizes fat, things like a sluggish liver or maybe a toxic overload. Insulin resistance is a big one that typically contributes to weight gain or inability to lose weight. Thyroid, yes, of course, we know that. And when we talk about thyroid, it doesn't actually have to be a full-blown thyroid condition. It could be what we call like sluggish or, you know, hypothyroid function, yeah? So there are ways that, yes, you can kind of like help to boost that up as well. And of course, hormonal imbalance is a big one. In even things like inflammation, insomnia, and poor sleep quality. Why? It's because when you typically sleep for less than 7 hours a day, your body straight away goes into what we call the fight or flight syndrome. And part of that process is that it starts to release a lot of cortisol, right? And cortisol, unfortunately, for those of us who are trying to lose weight, is very detrimental because it actually makes you start craving for foods, anything that can be readily converted into glucose. And hence, you find that, you know, when you're stressed, when you're tired, you start craving like things like chips, maybe candy, ice cream, yeah, to kind of fuel your body's needs. The other thing that cortisol does is that it makes you hang on to your pre-existing fat stores for dear life, yeah, because it sees that as a very precious energy, source of energy, and to the body that's like its form of currency. So yes, when you are stressed, when you do not have enough sleep, typically it does sabotage your weight loss efforts. So whatever weight loss program you're embarking on, does it help to address those particular aspects of your health if it is something that you are experiencing, yeah? Okay, and then of course later on there, as I've mentioned, some behavioral factors also come into play when it comes to weight gain and you know, rebounding of weight. Yeah, so things like cravings, emotional hunger, and comfort eating. Okay, and sometimes you know, these last few things when it comes to the emotional aspect of eating and weight, right, is that it's not even conscious, yeah? And how many programs out there actually address this, I think, is an important question to ask for yourself, yeah? Okay, so what does the Mind Body Slim program, which is basically my own program, help you to achieve in terms of weight loss. So again, I ask the same question: is it sustainable? Yeah. So how long do I have to be on this diet to achieve those weight loss results? Okay. So this is very typical. I've done this for 10 years now. I've seen hundreds of clients, and my typical weight loss is 7 to 10 kilos in 3 weeks. So yes, I would say if you ask me, is it sustainable? I would say it doesn't really even come into play, because in just 3 weeks, you would most typical average adults would have achieved that weight loss results already. And for most people, that is sort of like the amount of weight that they are hoping to lose. Yeah. And why do I say that not only is it sustainable in terms of the results being very quick and hence it keeps you motivated, is that beyond this first 3 weeks of the program, I then actually continue to handhold my clients. Yes, I'm actually readily available to them for another 3 weeks of a maintenance. So this is where I think most weight loss programs out there fail, in the sense that yes, they help you achieve the weight, and then you're sort of like, whoa, let out into the real world again, and you're like, after a sort of period of deprivation, you are given all these choices, right? And hence you start to treat yourself, I would say reward yourself, because you've kind of deprived yourself for so long, you've achieved all this weight, and great, now is your chance to kind of like start to enjoy some of these foods that you've restricted yourself from, right? However, that is where most people then unfortunately rebound in weight, because especially if your body has lost a significant amount of weight in a relatively short period of time, then what happens is that your body has not really kind of like gotten used to that new weight of yours, and if given half a chance, it would very quickly want to bounce back to the original weight where it was sort of like comfortable for perhaps even years, right? You've been that excess on the excess side for probably years or at least a few months. So if given half a chance, it would want to quickly go back to that state where it's sort of like comfortable. So what we actually need to do is in my program, I actually handhold my client for another 3 weeks through maintenance, where again, using different methods, I help them lock in that weight, so that after that 3 weeks, they already have a very intimate knowledge of what foods most likely trigger weight gain for them, and they will also have learned new techniques in terms of the mental emotional aspect of eating, on how to make sure that they do not sabotage themselves or their weight loss results. Yeah. Okay. So is it a balanced diet? So on this note, I thought I'll share with you. Carmen, if you're watching, thank you. So Carmen was one of my clients, and these are some of the foods that she prepared during the first 3 weeks of the weight loss program. And as you can see, I do not rely on any shakes or powders. My clients are eating all these fresh foods. As you can see, there's a variety of fat, of course, very low fat, sorry, but proteins, carbs in terms of like healthy carbs, like your complex carbs in terms of vegetables, in terms of fruits. Yeah. So as you can see, yes, you are able to eat the rainbow. You also have fiber in your diet, and of course you also have like good sources of protein. So I will be honest, in the first 3 weeks, as you can see, the foods will be very low in fat and what we call your sugar and refined carbs, because I am using this very restricted diet combined with homeopathic remedies to trigger the body to actually burn its own fat. Yeah. So which is why there is this restrictive part of the diet. But once you go into maintenance, you're actually able to enjoy fats. Yeah. So yes, there's 2 different aspects in terms of the dietary component. Yeah. But as you can see, they are both filled with this sort of health promoting, I would say, natural fresh foods. Yeah. No processed foods. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of my clients, beyond just the weight loss benefits, right, they actually, with the reduced inflammation, with gut healing, they also start to enjoy other benefits beyond that of weight loss, including things like blood sugar balance. There's even some cardiovascular benefits, hormonal. In fact, you'll be surprised. A lot of my clients have a lot of hormonal balancing effects, especially my women clients, because of course the body has gone through a cleansing. It has detoxed some of this sort of probably some toxic residues, and hence they reap the rewards. Yeah. Okay. And of course, like digestive issues like bloating and stuff also improves. Okay. All right. So, okay, on this note, right, whilst I say that my program, there is some sugar restriction in terms of sugar and refined carbs, they are still having carbs, but healthy carbs, like complex carbs, okay? That is that aspect of sugar that is restricted, but it is for a good reason. Okay, the thing is that, our consumption of sugar has really skyrocketed over the last few centuries. So if you see, right, somebody who lived in the early 1700s, right, was consuming close to like no sugar at all, yeah. Whereas somebody in present day is consuming 80 over kilograms of sugar. So you will see that the amount of our sugar intake these days is as much as 70 grams of fructose, which is 300% above of our recommended intake. So if you think about it, right, do you think, in terms of our human body, the physical makeup, right, has it evolved so much that it is able to, now tolerate this massive amount of sugar that we are overloading it with? And if not, right, I mean, how much do you think our human body has really changed? If it hasn't even changed that much over millions of years, how much could it have changed over the last just 300 years to be able to accommodate the massive amounts of sugar that we are overloading it with? And if not, then are you surprised in terms of all these different health conditions that is now on the rise, right? And I'm sure you know that in Singapore we are fighting the war on diabetes. So it is definitely not a surprise if you consider the amount of refined carbohydrates and sugars that we are consuming. So what I'm trying to say here is that my program does not restrict carbs intake specifically in terms of you are actually still eating your vegetables, your fruits. It is just the refined carbs that we should not have too much of. And in that sense, by helping to regulate sugar intake, we actually see a lot of I would say benefits in terms of blood sugar balance, which beyond just improving conditions like insulin resistance, also helps with a lot of other more long-term kind of benefits, yeah, in terms of helping to keep certain chronic diseases at bay, things like diabetes, heart disease for sure, and of course obesity. Yeah. Okay. So then when it comes to this question of doing no harm, what does my program use to ensure that it is safe? Okay. All right. So on this note, I will share with you a different healing modality that us naturopathic students are also taught, and which I use as part of my program here. Okay. Okay. So if you're unfamiliar with this particular therapeutic tool, this is purposely for you, okay, this part of the presentation and the show. Okay, so what is homeopathy? So it is not something that Tiffany we made up. In fact, it was discovered 200 years ago by a German physician, and it is based on this principle that like cures like. So what do we mean by that? So it is believed that a substance taken in small amounts will cure the same symptoms that it causes if it was taken in large amounts. Yeah. So maybe you're quite lost at this point. So I will give an analogy. Okay. So basically, Okay, the closest thing I can think of, which is not exactly the same, is like a vaccine, yeah? So you don't actually have like chicken pox, right? But I purposely put a small amount into your body, and that kind of like triggers your body to mount this particular response, right? Where it creates the sort of the antibodies, yeah? And hence, if you were to come into contact with somebody with a full-blown condition, you would already have achieved, immunity against it. So it is like a similar concept, but not exactly. Why? Because unlike vaccines, which still contains the actual substances, with homeopathic remedies, right, they have actually been diluted and succussed so many times that the physical substance no longer actually exists. And in that sense, right, it is extremely safe to use. It is made from natural substances and has no dangerous side effects, okay? And in fact, it stimulates your body's own healing abilities. This comes back to the naturopathic principles where, we believe that given the right conditions, the right circumstances, right, our body has an innate healing ability. Unfortunately, a lot of times because of the onslaught of everything, whether environmental, behavioral, whether it's through diet, we kind of like bring that body out of balance, and hence, disease starts to arise. So what homeopathy does is that it actually helps to stimulate your body's own innate healing ability. And in doing so, right, that healing becomes something that is long-term and sustained, yeah? Okay, and also you see here, right? So it is done usually prescribed under the guidance of a homeopath or somebody who's been trained in homeopathy, and they can be taken by people of all ages, including babies, children, even pregnant or breastfeeding women. So on that note, right, I just wanted to share in case your thing is like, oh, some airy fairy thing, right? That even from young, my kids, we actually actively use homeopathy at home for different things, yeah. So for example, if they were to get a respiratory type condition, quite often I would use this. Can you see? So over here is a homeopathic, right? So yeah, this is like a cough and respiratory syrup to help relieve some of those symptoms. So typically this would be my first line of action if my kids do catch something. The other thing that we use a lot of at home would be arnica. So I think a lot of people are familiar with arnica. It's a great homeopathic remedy for any kind of bruises, sprains, strains. So right, with kids, they're always falling down, they're always bumping themselves, getting knocked here and there. So we call this like the magic pills at home. So they know, and every time nowadays when they fall down, right, they will ask me for, mommy, can I have the the magic baubles, they call it. Okay, they don't know that it's arnica, they don't know that it's homeopathic, but all they know is that every time they fall, that this thing will make them feel better. And if you see, right, okay, so all it is, they are actually like sugar pills, which is why I think my kids actually like it. So can you see? Yeah. So yeah, so this basically acts as just the form that the actual homeopathic remedies are delivered in. Yeah. So yeah, why I'm trying to tell you this is because I'm trying to give you an example of how safe it is that even kids are able to use homeopathics. Yeah. So let alone adults. Yeah. And in fact, right, if you visit a lot of the countries in Europe, like a Apothec, which is our equivalent of, let's say, a Guardian or Watson's, right? When you walk into the shops, you'll quite often see that, here in our health food stores, there will be like rows of like, your vitamins, your herbal supplements. And over in Europe, quite often you will also see another shelf filled with all this sort of like homeopathic remedies, yeah? Because it's something that a lot of them actually typically use, as part of their daily lives, and they are kind of like well trained, sort of like how we as Chinese use TCM, herbal soups and things like that. Maybe the Indians use Ayurvedic. Yeah, so it's part of their sort of like life and their culture, yeah, such that yeah, it's very commonplace, nothing unusual. And in fact, in some countries, like Switzerland, Germany, it is used alongside sort of the normal healthcare as part of an integrated health model. And I believe in some of these countries, you can even claim health insurance for it. Yeah. So it's not something airy fairy that is like hocus pocus. Yeah, it is actually well established. Yeah, in fact, in Singapore as well, you will see if you Google, there's actually quite a few homeopathic clinics that specifically use homeopathy to treat a myriad of different health conditions. Yeah. Okay. And then, something just to share is that, in fact, the British and German royal family have what we call their court homeopaths, and they are active, supporters of homeopathy. And yeah, if you Google, right, you would even see some articles of the Queen using homeopathy to sort of like keep herself healthy during COVID-19. So how true that is anyone's guess, but yeah, that there are some articles out there. Okay, so in my particular program, I do use this particular product, which contains 22 different homeopathic ingredients that targets some of these other physiological factors that we've mentioned when it comes to weight loss. Things like fat burning, supporting hypothalamic activity, or basically the brain aspects of fat metabolism, detox, blood sugar balancing, metabolism, immunity, appetite control, cravings, and stress support. As mentioned earlier, all of this comes into play when it comes to helping you not just lose the weight, but maintain it. And using homeopathic remedies in this sort of like safe manner, I actually help to address these underlying conditions. Yeah. Okay. And is it a complete solution is what I've been asking over and over, right? So I will answer that. So bear with me. But before that, at this point of the show, I thought I'll break it up a bit by inviting online my guest, Randall. He is somebody who actually has been on my program, but he was not just a client. In fact, if you see here, right, this picture on the right here, why is there a picture of this Japanese kabuki production, right? This is actually how I met Randall. He was my theatre studies classmates. We were in theatre studies in NUS together. And yes, I've been on many productions. And here you can see I'm the one here. And he is here. Yeah, so that's how we met in theatre studies. In this this is one of the productions that we did. It's called Scaroku. And years later, we kind of reconnected. We've always been in touch, via Facebook, but we reconnected because, he wanted to see how he could perhaps shed a little bit more weight, because he's actually actively involved in martial arts and self-defense, and also trains people in these different activities so as to achieve fitness goals. Yeah, so some of my clients, they ask me, after they've shed the weight, like how, now that I've lost the weight, but my body's kind of like a bit flabby, what can I do? And I do tell them, oh, I'm sorry, but that is kind of like out of my scope of work already. And Randall would be somebody that would be brilliant for you to kind of follow up with in terms of how to further promote your fitness levels, if you start to have some flab, how you can tone up. Yeah. So on that note, I think I will actually invite him online so that he can share with us more about what he actually does. Okay. All right. All right, Randall, you're good to go? Okay.
Hey, everyone.
All right, hang on. Yeah, I'll just yes, okay. So welcome to the show, Randall. So maybe you can start by kind of like sharing with everybody like why you decide to embark on my Mind Body Slim program, and what was your experience of it?
Okay. Initially, was talking with the wife. So we both wanted to see how we could manage our diet as well. So we started doing this together. And since wanted to encourage my wife as well, I thought I should also set an example by signing up for the program. As you mentioned, right? I'm physically very active and I'm involved in coaching, but sometimes the nature of people in our line of work is that we have very irregular hours. Two, we have a very high metabolic rate. So coaching someone and training for yourself are two very different things. So often by the time I finish my coaching sessions, I could have been working for a good 4 to 5 hours in the evenings. I would have skipped dinner. The only thing left for me to do is eat supper. And what's available at 11 o'clock at night isn't necessarily the best option in terms of healthy food. So there have been periods of time where if there are intense training projects, I'm fine. My diet, even though my life is packed, I burn off the calories. But what happens after that is you have maybe 2 weeks of downtime between projects or between coaching, but your body still craves that same amount of calories because it's used to functioning at that level. So you
Oh
find
yeah.
that suddenly when over the course of a week, I don't do anything, there's no coaching, I'm taking a nice, but you're still eating normally what you're used to, and then the weight balloons up. So while you're fit and mobile, then you realize, wait a minute, I'm exercising, I'm coaching, I have high energy expenditure, but my weight is increasing. I'm not necessarily flabby. I have good proportions of lean muscle mass, but I seem to be gaining in weight.
Yeah, if I may interrupt you at this point, that was exactly what I told you, right? When we first met, I was
Yeah,
like, huh? Do you need to lose weight? You don't even look like, I mean, like, I would, if I saw you, yeah, maybe, a bit of the 中年 tummy, right? But apart from that, it's like you didn't come across as being like
yeah.
overweight to me, you're like quite okay, what? Yeah, so that was
So
in fact one of the questions I asked you.
So we feel it, and for those of the audience out there, if you do any form of grappling sports, martial arts, judo, BJJ, you will know that if your training partner puts on 5 kg, that 5 kg resting on you is a lot. So one of the things that my clients will realize is when I'm gearing for either intense part or when I'm doing my own stuff, sometimes I will wear a weight vest, wear weight vests and ankle weights. We want to give ourselves a bit of resistance when we move dynamically. So my weight vest is about 5 kg plus my ankle weights. If I'm wearing that and moving with it, it's 10 kgs of body weight. So I can you imagine if I shed that amount of weight naturally, how much lighter I am. So after having gone through your program we started, I think sometime in September with the wife. I also had a series of outdoor excursions, climbing
Oh
mountains,
yes, that
right?
was the challenging part. Randall
Correct.
even had to do the program part of it overseas because of
Yeah.
something that he could not put off. And sorry if I'm interrupting you, but this is what I
Go
want
ahead.
to say. Like with each of my clients, I work with you as an individual. I am kind of like constantly available to you for that whole 7 to 8 weeks. And based on whatever comes up for you, I will actually handhold and guide you through it. And hence, everybody that comes on, right, are given like a slightly different way of doing the program to ensure that you individually do achieve those results. And for Randall, it was challenging, but nonetheless, I think you did it right.
So precisely because of that hand holding that helped. You see, if you had given me like an entire annex of okay, what you can eat, what you can't eat, right? You could have given me in a PDF form or what, but it would not be feasible because I was leading a track for about 5 days. So I'm not going to be carrying and checking. It's more convenient. So for all those of you who are out there, how it works with Tiffany is like, I text her, hey, this is the limited options of food that I can have. What would you recommend? Then Tiffany would come back to me and says, okay, this one, in case you didn't know, is actually very high in complex carbs. Huh? I never knew it this way. I thought, oh, taking fruits is fine. So we were able to categorize that, and the advantage was that while it seems very tough that while you're on a track, you are restricting your diet, right? But at each point, I was still losing weight. I didn't have a scale, but I was. So what this means is, although you're physically exerting, the expenditure is less because I'm moving less weight up the mountain. So just like in any physical, at the end of the whole program, I was thinking I just lose 5 kg. Yeah, I'll be very happy. I lost about 10. That brought me back to my weight when I was at competitive time. So I
Yeah.
found that a lot of movements that took me effort to do at my age are now not young anymore. I want to do a jump, have to think twice. I was able to do much
I'm
easily.
44, so you can imagine how young Randall is.
So So don't we be realistic, like you were telling your listeners, we need to be realistic. That doesn't mean I go for a weight loss program, miracles will happen, suddenly I can do. But I found that I was able to do a lot of more acrobatic and gymnastic movements with less strain on my knees. I've A lot of the pain or consideration, even the mental hurdles are lesser, because when you carry more weight on you, you realize that you need more effort. But now, with the same amount of uh, of strength and lean muscle mass that you have, you're actually moving less weight. So your body becomes more efficient at transferring force, and that for any form of practitioner is useful. So I find that uh, my fitness is there, no issue with that. My power is there. I have not lost any of the power. In fact, now I'm faster. So that has
Great.
been
Yeah.
that's been a good thing that has been gone. And also you begin to be more pain free. Why? Because your joints are carrying less load. As we age, naturally we lose bone muscle mass. It takes more time to stay in shape. We also lose bone density. So having
Mm-hmm.
on this program has helped a lot. I also clean up my diet a lot. Almost we we can't do it completely, but we have eliminated processed sugars from most of the diet at home already.
I think I nag you so much until you cannot. That's what a lot of my clients say, because I nag you for like a good 8 weeks, right? That after the
Mm.
program, there's no way you can look at sugar the same way again. Like you become a lot more like, like kind of like, oh, Tiffany is like in the background, like like
Yeah.
watching me still, right?
The good thing was that you gave us, so before that a lot of it was head knowledge. So we know. I mean, being involved in some form of fitness training, okay, cut down on sugar. So one of the things is getting over the misconception that, oh, if I eat meat, fatty food, that actually is the sugar that causes us to put weight. Because why? The body just stores it. But knowing that as head knowledge was difficult, you turn that into a habit for us, because through the program, through the hand holding, and through the mentoring process, that head knowledge gets translated into a habit, because now I'm more mindful. I'm saying that, oh, when can I eat what and how I eat, not just reducing, because otherwise it's you only know what not to do. You only know the negative thing. Then do what? What are my alternatives? So remember, I took the huge dehydrator bag and dehydrated vegetables and fruit. So
Yes,
uh,
yes.
dehydrated broccoli. My wife even had recipe for what was that, gluten that snow bread that you talked about, which was fantastic.
Oh yes, yes. The cloud bread.
Cloud bread, cloud bread. That
Yes.
was fantastic. We've tried different recipes, and the strange thing is the food tastes the same. In fact, the food tastes better. So for all those of you who are wondering, right, what did I eat on my trek? Cannot eat carbo. Canned tuna in water and onions and garlic. Sounds terrible, right? But actually, it's very flavorful. Once you take away sugar from your diet, right, you find that the rest of the food becomes
Mm.
more flavorful, and you want that kind of palate, because now I can taste the pepper, spices. I've never eaten so much fruit in my entire life.
Oh,
So
you
my
mean even now? Even now?
Yeah. So sometimes what happens is I drop a good 10 kilograms after that. Sometimes my weight will fluctuate 1 kg plus or minus. For me to get back into the zone, I do two things. I would let let that keep them guessing about what are the small little tricks. Okay, they must sign up for your program, then they know. But very easy to get back into the weight range just by moderating the diet. Looking for fruit.
Basically, what you learn through the program, you're saying that you just use those so-called
Yeah,
tricks to kind of like regulate the weight if you do gain it.
correct. And it's it's the initial part. The difficulty for me was both the amount of food as well as the craving. So
Mm.
one of the reasons why the weight crept up for me across the years was the cravings. When you are running
Mm.
your own business as a coach, as a trainer, it's been a stressful day. You go back at 11 o'clock, all you want to do is stress eat. So it,
Yeah, it's like a reward for yourself after such a
yeah.
long hard day. Yeah.
So my daughters had to resort to like hiding the Lay's potato chips, cause they buy a potato chip to share over the next 3 days, right? Then he comes back, he's hungry, he eats the whole potato chips and it's all gone, right? So
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
the cravings took a while, but actually because you have provided alternatives for that, and there's a regimen to it, the body replaces bad habits with new habits.
Mm,
So
mm,
if you say just don't do a bad habit, then
mm,
what do I do? It's just like smokers, right? So we were
mm,
talking, we remember we had this conversation, smokers, you tell the fella don't smoke. Most of them will end up, oh, in order to get rid of that, they start chewing gum. They replace negative habit. So we replace the binge eating or the very emotive type of eating with a structured way. And then my body starts to look forward to it. My mind also says, okay, I know these are the alternatives available for me. Hey, actually it tastes just as good, if not better. Then it calibrates ourselves to that. So I don't see that I'm
mm.
lacking anything.
Actually, on this note, you're right. One of the side benefits that a lot of my clients do say is that they kind of have regained, the love of the taste of food in its natural form. A lot of times we are so, desensitized. Our palate is so desensitized by all the processed foods, the sugar that we eat, that we keep craving like, more and more intense flavors just to get that same like sort of like kick or that same high, right? That when we eat something very plain, it's like no taste. But once we strip off all that processed foods, right, we really start to, kind of like just appreciate that very subtle kind of like flavors that Mother Nature kind of provides.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing, it's just different. And over time, you like you say, you grow to appreciate it. In fact, yeah.
So for me, right? I'm a
Mm,
big
mm,
coffee lover. Now there was a period of time I was in the civil service and I put on my biggest weight gain then. So there one of the reasons I left the civil service was because bad thought of life, lah, no work-life balance. And
mm,
that was my
mm,
first time I experienced okay, cleaning up my diet.
mm, mm.
So I realized my weight gain when I was working was because not so much the coffee, but the sugar in the coffee. So if you take
Yeah,
uh you go to the Sarabat store, you take teh tarik or teh C 3 times a day. Imagine how much sugar. But by
yeah,
cutting
yeah.
sugar from coffee and tea and beverage, I at first it was laziness. So when I started to come out on my own, I just stopped having sugar in my coffee. But I realized that for a coffee drinker, um, I can actually taste the coffee better. So for me, I
Mm,
prefer it.
mm,
So when you start to drink tea, and drink coffee on its own, like what you said, the subtlety in the flavors come out. And for me now, I'm kept energized not because of the sugar rush, because for me
mm,
now I can
mm.
take time to at least a bit mindfully drink the coffee. So that was a very subtle change in habits for me, but I found that it changed the way I perceive drinking coffee, changed the way I enjoy a cup of beverage rather than looking at okay, I need to drink coffee because I need to work. Now there's no sugar in it. I take my time, recharge for about 5 minutes, and plow into work. Then my approach to working also different.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I would say that yes, a lot of what you've been saying, right? In terms of like this kind of addictive, kind of like substances like coffee, sugar, is in fact a great point. Because this is where I'm going to lead into after sort of my interview with you. In in the sense that we use a lot of foods to mask, sort of what we're actually feeling, like by giving ourselves like almost like a immediate instant gratification. We sort of like block off sort of uncomfortable feelings or emotions that we do not actually want to face. But if we do not address that, it actually does come back. So instead of overly relying on all this kind of like strong tasting foods, we can kind of like change our diets, and also look at the more mental emotional aspects of weight
Yeah,
loss and health in general. Yeah.
and that was
Okay,
very
great.
okay.
Yeah, so on that note, I just wanted to ask you then, because as I've mentioned earlier, right, that a lot of my clients, when they've lost the weight, right, then they ask me, hey, how are Tiffany? Now it's like, oh, very flabby, my arms, or like, I need to tone up, like, and then I tell them like, no, sorry, okay, that's, I'm kind of multi-talented, but no, sorry, I don't do fitness training. So with my clients or like anybody who has lost weight, how is your approach different from like, let's say, doing it on their own, or like going to a gym to just work out on the treadmill? Like, what can you actually bring to the table to help? Especially for you who have gone through that program yourself, how can your approach to fitness benefit them?
Okay. My focus is more on functional movement and reaction. So as a coach and fitness for martial artists, my focus is unlike some of the coaches who are talking about sculpting and toning, they are working on specific body parts. I'm looking at your performance as an individual. So weight loss and toning is a byproduct. That means for me, you don't need to be fit to do martial arts. You do martial arts to get fit, but the fitness is that byproduct. So when I work with clients, first thing I always ask them is, what do you want to get out of it? And we work by allowing you to move freely, comfortably. So a lot of my sessions are tailored to be one-to-one interactive. I will work with them in interactive drills, getting them to move and find their comfort zone. Once they find their comfort zone, we bring them slightly out of it to challenge them. So especially during this time of COVID where big classes are discouraged, one-to-one training works because I customize the program for you. That's one. Two is I don't focus on the aesthetics. That means it's not at the end you must have defined abs or this, because we know as we age, things will change. But what I'm more interested is, can you move freely, effectively? Number one. Two, pain free. So
Yes, I
having a
think the pain-free part is very important because as age creeps up, as you say, right, these are the things that we start to notice more and more.
So remember, I was telling you when we first met that for me, one of the challenges is I know that I can lose the weight prior to this. So in a day, I have ever weighed myself, I can lose up to 2 kg, which I believe is just pure fluid loss. But the question is, then how do I keep it off? Because I'm not stopping the external source, which is, so I have to restrict uh, volume of food or my intake. But through this program, what you did for me was it changed my energy needs from within. That means what my body needs for energy. So it complements what I do. Whereas in the past was, okay, if I need to lose weight, I just cut down the number of calories, but I just eat anything I want. So how does this program help me to reprogram my body and retrain my body? We know what we need to do in the mind, but often it's okay, we know it, but how do we turn it into a sustainable habit? So I was
Yes.
able to do that in my physical practice, but in terms of eating and in terms of lifestyle, it was always, I can always do it later, or can always do it, or it's too difficult. But when you came in and helped guide me through it, I realized, okay, very easily for me to work it out. And it's been 6 months since we ended the program. We've been on COVID homestay. I've not put back any weight. I've not put back. I've managed to stay at the weight I want. In fact,
Fantastic.
I've gotten better muscular definition. So that's good. Of course, stay at home.
Yeah, I can see your face like looks very slim online. So yeah,
So
looking forward to see you in person.
the good thing was also because of what you did, right? When we stayed at home during circuit breaker, right?
Mm.
We have a chance to experiment with home cooked food and diet. And I believe
Mm.
what you were sharing with us about cooking at home versus eating out, that is half the battle won already. Because now I determine the habits that I want to eat and what I want to do. So with the fitness clients that would want to come and work on self-defense, you can share with them the promo later on.
Oh yeah, why don't you share with them now? Like yeah, so with all my shows to help get people to share the video, I get well my guests to see if they like to sponsor something. So yes, Randall has very kindly come up with a promotional. So maybe you can share with us what you
Yep.
plan to give away.
So for those of you who are interested to work on a simple martial arts program to raise your heart rate, increase your fitness, and also to learn how to work dynamically in, let's say, a fight or flight situation. For example, if we talk about self-defense scenario, often it's going to catch us unaware. It's going to be much closer, much more. How do you utilize your subconscious reflexes to enable you to survive that adrenaline spike? I can work with you for no obligations, 30 minutes free session. I'll be giving out 3 sessions, right? Right, I'll be giving out 3 sessions,
Yeah,
and I'll
three
work with you
sessions.
to develop your abilities to strike, to move away from incoming threats, and also to recognize one simple thing. How do we overcome our blink response? Because normally when we are facing with threat, we will close our eyes, our hands go towards the threat, and our bodies move away. Can we bring the blink response under our conscious control? We can. Same thing like what we are thinking about. When I have food cravings, right? We always think it's unconscious. But can we bring that under our conscious control in a non-intrusive and non-aggravating way? There are methodologies. So
okay, I have to try that out for myself one of these days.
why this program was powerful for me was I've always been looking at it from a physical functional movement point of view, but when you shared with me changing the eating process, then I realized, hey, if I can switch this, that's why I adapted very well to the program. When you shared that education with me and how I could use it to empower my body, and my system was able to cope with it, and it was not a torturous process for me. It was just a matter of looking at it as another tool, another platform for me to improve what I'm already doing.
Yeah. And yeah, thanks for saying that, because that's how I tell a lot of my clients, right? I mean, like, sort of to also encourage them on a mental level is that when you embark on this program, the first 3 weeks I would say is the difficult part because it's a cleansing diet. But you know, your own attitude towards the whole program makes that huge difference in terms of like if you kind of like started it off on a very defeated note in the sense that you felt like you were forced to do this, or you know, you're like deprived, then you know that next 3 weeks is going to be very long, right? It's going to feel very long. However, if you kind of change your whole mentality and tell yourself, this is something that I actively choose to do for myself because I want to, you know, clean up my diet, I want to lose that weight, I want to, you know, improve my health, and you know, just think of it as something that you it's going to positively affect you. I think then that makes that whole difference, and the 3 weeks will kind of like just sail by a lot quicker. And I think it's the same when it comes to fitness, right? A lot of people are also very hesitant to start a fitness program because they feel like, oh, I have to drag myself to it. But if you change that mentality towards something that this is something that's going to positively enhance my health and well-being, then, you know, it changes the whole dynamics of it. And I think it will also contribute towards the results as well.
So
Would you?
my competitive days, I think, more or less over already. But for all those who are listening, especially martial artists, they will tell you that one of the most miserable points if you are participating in any weight class category is that you go for what they call weight cut. So usually, if I'm 75 kg, I want to try and bring my weight to 70. Then I participate. And after the competition, my weight will go back up to my normal. And the traditional process of weight cutting is very miserable because you basically starve yourself to bring your weight down, and you are sometimes dehydrated. You know, you're eating cereal just to. But when I went through this process, I wasn't miserable at all. In fact, I was very happy. I was very, very happy because I think the elimination of sugar, number one, stopped a lot of the sugar spikes in me, so processed sugar, and I did not feel miserable at all because of the entire process in which we went through, as opposed to doing a weight cut program where you're literally just starving yourself, restricting calories, and then after that you're hoping for the event to be over, qualify for it, and then I go back to normal, right? This one was a permanent flip of the switch.
Okay, yeah. All right. Thank you so much for sharing so much, Randall. I wish I could, you know, give you more airtime, but I noticed that my show has already dragged on for much longer than my typical show. So I just want to let everybody go and not tire. So thank you so much for joining me. As y'all can see, if any of you have more questions, you can go to Randall's website, and then you can contact him there. I will also be posting up more information on how to contact him after this show. So thank you, Randall, for joining us. Please stick around, the rest of you. Yeah, thank you. I'll let you go off first so that you can also go enjoy the rest of your weekend. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah. Yeah, as I was saying, I didn't want to keep the rest of you on for too long. So what I'm going to do is go to the last part of today's presentation. And I think this is actually very important. And Randall actually has started to share some of it already. So very on point, I would say. And I call this the missing link to most weight loss programs. So this is the one critical component that I think most weight loss programs out there do not address. Yeah, not all, but I think most. Yeah, whether it's some commercial program, whether it's a ketogenic diet or the intermittent fasting that you're trying to do on your own. Okay. So it's the mind-body connection, as we have started to allude to. What are some of these mental roadblocks to actually weight loss, and importantly, its maintenance? Yeah. So as I've mentioned earlier, right, when it comes to the functional approach to any health condition, we look at the underlying imbalances. And for weight loss, you'll be surprised, but sometimes it could be completely a mental and emotional imbalance that is kind of like sabotaging you from having a healthy weight. Yeah. So if you see toxic emotions, things like anger, fear, could be loneliness, is one of these key things that actually comes into play when it comes to weight loss. Okay. So another way that we often term this is emotional hunger. Okay. This is actually the key thing why I decided to embark on my mindful eating teachers training a few years ago. Because when this program, this Mind Body Slim program was first launched, I did like the first part, right, where I kind of handhold my clients to lose the weight, and then I handhold them for another 3 weeks to lock in that new weight. Yeah. And at the end of that, sort of 7 to 8 week program, they asked me, as I let them back out into the so-called real world, okay, Tiffany, but then what's next? And I'm like, what do you mean what's next? I already helped you lost the weight. I even, took it on myself to handhold you for 3 weeks to maintain it. Like, what do you mean what's next? You're kind of like, well, welcome back to the real world. And they are like filled with fear, they're filled with apprehension. Because why? In the past, they have tried other weight loss programs and very quickly rebounded in weight, right? So they are afraid that the same thing will happen to them. And well, I can't really handhold you for your rest of your life, right? So I started to think, okay, so what are some reasons that a lot of people start to rebound in weight or regain weight after a weight loss program? And then I realized that, okay, especially after going through my program, after that weeks of me, as Randall has mentioned, of me kind of like instilling into you all that knowledge of what could potentially sabotage your diet and make you gain weight. There is no way that you would not know what you should or should not eat, yeah, to maintain that weight. So usually what happens is that it's some mental imbalance or some emotional trigger that would cause you to eat badly or fall back on your old ways despite knowing what you should do. Yeah. So this is the part that I think we need to actually address if we wanted to help people lose weight in a holistic manner, because whilst a lot of people might have lost that physical weight in the short term, if we do not address this sort of like toxic emotions that lead us to overeat in the first place, then the solution to me is not a complete one. So this is the reason why with the Mind Body Slim program, I include this entire aspect of weight loss to help achieve this mind, body, spirit approach in terms of weight loss, this results rather, by using mindful eating. Okay, so okay, this is kind of a summary of what I've said earlier, that by addressing thought and emotions and that behavioral aspect of eating, the cravings, the heart hunger, this is that missing piece to the puzzle that we need to also question when it comes to helping our clients achieve weight loss. So this is this HOT approach, right, is one of the techniques that a lot of people who are addicted, who have addictions rather, are taught, yeah, in certain schools. Basically, right, before you kind of like turn to these whether it's food or whether it's some other form of addictive substance, it could be, well, okay, alcohol, it could be smoking, it could be even online shopping, or just any kind of addictive behavior which is not actually serving you in the long term. When you are up at that moment where you're about to cave and give in. This is what the sort of the people who are afflicted are taught to ask themselves. And in the same way, when it comes to mindful eating, we approach it from that same angle. It's like before you reach for that food, first ask yourself, why are you kind of like reaching out for food? Is it because you're hungry? If so, then yes, of course, you might want to, eat something. But even then, you can be more mindful in terms of your food choices. Instead of gulping down, half a tub of ice cream, perhaps a warm cup of herbal tea and maybe a call or reach out to your friend might be able to help you solve that particular moment, that anxiety that you are facing, and not having to turn to rich addictive type foods that might be more detrimental to your health. And then also, if in fact after questioning yourself you find that your answer is nothing to do with your physical hunger, but rather is because you might actually be feeling angry, lonely, or tired, then is food necessarily going to help you resolve these sort of emotions? And if not, maybe you can look at taking care of yourself and these needs in a different way. So the way that I use in my program is to fall on mindfulness, and very specifically mindful eating, okay, where we look at nourishing our body one bite at a time. So why we say nourish is because it is when we eat in this sort of mindful way, we actually make it a very intentional act, right? And instead of just reaching out for whatever kind of like cravings we have, we stop, pause, and listen to our bodies, listen to ourselves, and really kind of start to think about, what do I really need? What am I really hungry for in this moment? And if it was a form of food, okay, fine, I still eat that food, but at least I do so mindfully. And if I do, instead of just rushing through it or eating it mindlessly, I really sit down, take that time to really appreciate each and every bite and everything it has to offer, so that it is nourishing me, not just on a physical level, but also mentally and emotionally. Okay. And the other thing that happens when we start to practice mindfulness or mindful eating more regularly is that we find that we start to anchor our thoughts. It is not running around sort of like a monkey mind, right? And we break out of an autopilot mode, because that is what happens, when we are not mindful, when we are not in the moment, and our thoughts and emotions are all over the place, then we kind of usually are very strong, very tight, and then we might react, instead of allowing ourselves to create that space between our thoughts, our emotions, and a particular situation, and having that little bit of a breathing room allow us to have a bit of a pause, a moment to respond to how we really feel at core, instead of being so frustrated that we just react. So whether it is using food as a practice, whether it's using your breath, whether it's even washing your dishes, in many ways, actually, by doing the task at hand in a very mindful, conscious way, with awareness, and with a sense of curiosity, we start to create this space in our minds, to be able to react to situations in a more meaningful way. Okay. So then some other benefits of mindful eating is that instead of creating like this sort of like a guilt, high cycle, you re-establish a very natural, joyful relationship to food. You reconnect your senses with your body, so that you're not always like in just this head space. You're kind of like grounded, coming back to sort of like on a more earthy level, and are able to truly appreciate foods for what they are. Rather than just to mask certain emotions that you're trying to not feel. Okay. Also, through mindful eating, I do teach my clients how to distinguish between the different levels of stomach hunger and how much do you really need to eat in order to feel satisfied. Yeah. So instead of eating to the point where you're always like overfull and in a food coma, by slowing down the whole process of eating, you can tune into your stomach hunger and start to discern for yourself how much you really need to eat. Okay. And then also, we look at again, if you were, if you did recognize that your hunger is in fact not so much stomach hunger, but rather a heart hunger, typically that links to basically connection with others, connection with yourself. It is sort of like in a very stressful environment where you're constantly, have a never-ending to-do list and you're just, going through the task of the day. You live in this sort of like very unconscious mode, and it's just about getting through the day. However, at the end of the day, you quite often feel very depleted and empty. So a lot of people, whilst they're surrounded with a lot of maybe material things, maybe they're even surrounded with a lot of well-meaning friends and family, yet they still feel very empty, very lonely. And quite often it's because there's this disconnect, right? Because they're so entwined with, all the tasks, all the stressful kind of situations that, instead of kind of appreciating what we have, we start to, disconnect. And it's that sense of disconnection that we, feel fuels this sense of loneliness, this emptiness. And some of the times it might not even be conscious. And if not, right, because we do not know what is it that we are actually hungry for, we just think that it's a kind of physical hunger, and we try to satisfy this need by, just reaching out for foods because there is that instant gratification, right? However, over time we realize that no, that emptiness, that feeling doesn't really go away. So then we kind of have to start discerning for ourselves if it is in fact an emotional hunger, then how else can we take better care of ourselves? Okay. So on that note, I thought, on this at this point, we'll try a mindful eating practice. Okay. So for this, even if you're not prepared now, don't worry. You can always watch this video again, or you can pause it if you're watching a repost. But what you need is a small item of food. So as you can see here in this picture, I actually have a raisin because yes, in MBSR or MECL, the mindfulness trainings that we are taught, it starts off with just a single raisin to do this mindful eating practice. Okay, it's called the raisin meditation if you wanted to Google that. For our purposes now, if you can just quickly go to your kitchen and find any small item of food. It could be, for example, well, I do have a raisin here, which is what I'll be practicing with. It could be a small piece of fruit, for example, the banana, a piece of apple, an orange, a slice of orange. It could also be things like milk, like this milk candy here, milk chocolate here, yeah. So one thing that I wanted to point out with mindful eating is that it teaches us basically to kind of not be overly judgmental. So you might be surprised, hey, why is Tiffany saying to use chocolate? Isn't chocolate a bad food? So in mindful eating, one of the things we are taught is actually foods are just food. There is no good food or bad food. Yeah, it is the amounts of which that you eat that actually matters. Yeah. So when it comes to certain foods that we might think might be so-called unhealthy from the nutritional point of view, if it satisfies you on another level, then yeah, sure, from time to time you can have small amounts of it. So even in my whole Mind Body Slim program, right, I do tell people it is good to practice the 80-20 rule. If you're sort of like eating well 80% of the time, then it's okay. 20% of the time we are human, so you are still able to eat things that might not be particularly nutritious, but kind of like gives you satisfaction and happiness in a different way. So yes, in that sense, you can use candy, you can use chocolate for this mindful eating practice. Okay. All right. So are you ready? So if you are, you might want to join me now. Okay. So I'll do this practice, what we call the 9 hungers. Yeah. So a lot of times when we eat, we are triggered by sort of like the taste of food. So that's mouth hunger, or by our stomach growling, right? So that's stomach hunger. And we eat basically what wow, it's delicious, yeah. So this practice actually opens up your mind to see hunger in a myriad of different ways, and yeah, be open-minded about this, and see how we go. Okay. All right. So if you have your piece of food ready, you can join me now. Yeah. So we'll start with eye hunger. Okay. So let's say you pick up your piece of food. Yeah. And on a scale of 0 to 10, how much does your eye hunger for this food? Okay. So how much, just by looking at it, okay? Let's take a look at this food that we have in front of us. Maybe you might even want to hold it to the light. Looking at it in terms of its colors, textures, what are our eyes telling us about this food? How much do our eyes want to eat this food? So on a scale of 0 to 10, just in your mind, you can come up with a number, yeah? So just looking at it. Okay, and then next, bring it to your nose. So taking a deep whiff, you might ask yourself now, what is my nose hunger for this food? What is my nose telling me about how hungry it is to want to eat this food from a scale of 0 to 10? Once again, what is my nose hunger? And if it's 0, that's fine too, yeah? There's no right or wrong answer. Next, let's bring it to our ears. Maybe we might even want to, kind of like swish it around a bit. Is there any sound? Maybe the other ear. What are my ears telling me? So from 0 to 10, is there a ear hunger for this particular food? And on this note, you might be laughing or be puzzled, like, what do you mean? It's like these foods have a sound. So okay, on this in this case with the raisin, not much, so yeah, my ear hunger is kind of low. But in other instances, things like potato chips or like pop crackling, right? When that moment when you first bite into the food and you hear that crunch, that sound, right? Isn't that very satisfying, right? So in those cases, if you in fact have that kind of foods in your hand right now, yeah, that sound, that ear hunger might be actually quite high, yeah. So something to think about as well. So ear hunger. Okay, and then next, sort of like touch hunger, yeah. So what is this food telling you in terms of like the feeling of it between your fingers, perhaps, or maybe the weight of it on your hand, the texture of it, is there anything that just the feel of it is somehow enhancing your hunger for it? On a scale of 0 to 10, what is your touch hunger? Yeah. So on this note again, one example I can think of is, for example, peanuts. Yeah. So for me, I'm somebody who loves to eat peanuts that still have the shells on it, because sort of like that feel of just being able to open up the shells and eat it, that enhances my experience of eating that food, and it kind of increases my hunger for it, right? So yeah, I mean, sometimes when we eat with our hands, it has a completely different feeling as using cutlery. So something to think about as well. What is your touch hunger for this food? Yeah. Okay, next, when you're really ready, okay, next we'll start exploring mouth hunger. Okay, so let's do this slowly. So first, we'll just put this food between our lips and have a feel of it. Okay, from 0 to 10, what is my mouth hunger for this particular food? Okay, so sort of play with your food in your mouth, yeah, feeling the texture of it between your teeth, between your tongue, your palate, really kind of like swishing it around in your mouth and playing with it without biting on it yet. Okay, just getting a feel of it, yeah. Okay, and then when you have had a good sense of the texture of it in your mouth, next you might want to take one bite of it. Okay, and then kind of feel it around in your mouth again, just one bite, yeah. You get that explosion of flavors happening in your mouth when you bite on it. So what is your mouth hunger for it now? Yeah, 0 to 10, has it increased? from all the other hungers. And then you slowly, really, very mindfully, consciously, really chew that food, okay? To as small as you can before you swallow it, okay? And even after you have swallowed it, see whether you can still detect that lingering taste of it, even after you have swallowed it physically. Is there still that sense of that food in your mouth lingering there? Yeah? Okay, and then next, so the first 5 hungers are the typical senses that we're very used to, right? Eyesight, sound, nose, the smell of it, the touch of it, and then of course taste with the mouth hunger, yeah? Okay, the next 4 senses I would say are more subtle, and maybe we have not really, looked at them before. So don't worry if you do not detect it, that would be your observation for today. So with mindfulness, we often talk about, looking at things from a curious point of view as opposed to a judgmental point of view. So all we're doing is just becoming aware of whatever happens. There's no right, there's no wrong, right? So even if you are not able or find difficulty in detecting a particular hunger, don't worry about it, okay? It will change as we, practice more and more, yeah? So on that note, for the next hunger, we are going to get a sense of stomach hunger. Yeah. So when we eat foods, it starts to feel that space in our stomach. Yeah, which is sort of like a volume that we are trying to detect. So that food that you've just eaten, how much volume in your stomach has it filled? From a scale of 0 to 10, what is your stomach telling you? How hungry is it for that particular food that you've just eaten? Okay, can you detect it? Yeah. If so, okay. If not, it's also okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then if you need, don't worry, you can have another little bite of whatever food you're eating. Okay. And then next, and it gets even subtler now. Okay, when we start to eat foods and it starts to infuse into our cells, right? It is what we call a cellular hunger, yeah? So quite often we talk about nutritional needs. So how much of this particular food that you've just eaten satisfies your cellular hunger? What are your cells telling you about this particular food and how hungry it is for this food? Can you detect cellular hunger? So maybe giving you just a moment there. This food that you've just eaten, how hungry are your cells for it on a scale of 0 to 10? Okay, all right. And then next we move into mind hunger. So this is one, we call it the critical mind, right? That is constantly there. So perhaps even as you were doing the first few hungers, it has already kind of like constantly tried to, come into the picture and tell you, oh, this food is good, it's bad, it's healthy, unhealthy, you should have more, you should not have, not, you should have less, yeah? So, well, the mind is there actually as a defense mechanism, right? So it's on the lookout for us actually, and there is a place for mind hunger in the sense that it's trying to protect you and do what's best or right, what's right by you. But sometimes because we are overly critical of ourselves, it can be a bit unforgiving, right? So in that sense, if we are able to kind of become aware of it and aware of how much it influences our thoughts, our emotions, then we can kind of choose what we want to do with it with the knowledge of this mind hunger, yeah? So on this note, that food that you've just eaten, what is your mind hunger for it? Is it telling you that you should have more? So like maybe on a scale of 0 to 10 is quite close to 10? Or is it telling you that no, it's not healthy, so you should not have so much of it? So that might be, on the lower side of that scale from 0 to 10. So what is your mind hunger telling you? Yeah. Okay. And then finally, we come to this last part, which actually is a big one. Yeah. So heart hunger. Okay. So heart is related to your emotions, your memories, perhaps of eating this particular food. So some foods might not be very nutritious, but when you eat it, you can feel almost that that the effort that whoever has cooked it has put into the food, or perhaps it brings back some memories of a holiday, or maybe a memory from childhood or from the past that triggered your memories of the people who were there with you, that maybe the happiness of that moment back in time. And by eating this food, it brings all those memories back. So there are some foods that, whilst might not feature high in terms of nutrition, there is a place for it, because it gives you a sense of heart, like it features highly in terms of heart hunger. So on a scale of 0 to 10, where are you in terms of that food that you've just eaten? Okay. All right. So there we go. We've just gone through all the 9 hungers. I'll just recap for you. Eye, nose, ear, touch, mouth, of course, and then stomach, cellular, mind hunger, and finally heart hunger. Okay, so what is the purpose of doing this mindful eating practice? So what I'm trying to do here is basically slow down the entire process of eating for you. So through this practice, because quite often, right, when we eat, you will notice, the next time you eat at a food court or eat somewhere outside, that a lot of times when people eat, right, they're not really paying attention to the food in front of them. Instead, they might be looking at their phones. They might be, kind of like just wandering their gaze everywhere except the food. So when we eat in that unconscious manner, we end up perhaps not making the best choices for our body's needs, and we might end up eating more than we need as well. Whereas when we start to slow down the entire process of eating, and be kind of like very mindful of what we actually put into our mouths, we start to kind of tap into our innate wisdom, which I believe has that knowledge to guide you to what it is that you really need to do or eat in this moment, and to what amounts, so that you feel happy, you feel satisfied without overly indulging, right? Okay, so on that note, that is the end of the mindful eating practice. And I just wanted to point out that for my my Mind Body Slim program clients, I often conduct this mindful eating retreats every few months, so that we come together. And yes, it's part of the program, so it's really paid for when they sign up for the program. And we kind of, through different activities, I invite guest speakers to host different aspects of workshops as well. So I've had people who do Reiki, who do sound healing, aromatherapy, and we learn a lot of different tools beyond mindful eating practices that helps us take care of ourselves on that mental emotional level, so that we do not necessarily have to fall back on food to help us nurse those emotional type wounds. Yeah, and in so doing, I'm hoping that it would give my clients a more holistic way of looking at their health and wellness beyond just weight management. Okay, all right, so on that note, that's okay, a summary is that I just wanted to say, with the Mind Body Slim program, as you can see, I try to the best of my abilities to address all the factors that comes into play when we look at weight loss, as well as maintenance, from not just the physical physiological factors, but all the way to the mental emotional factors, things like cravings, uh, uh, eating to soothe emotions, emotional hunger. So I hope you can see the benefits in terms of why this program might benefit you. Okay, so to answer the question that I posed right from the beginning, is it sustainable? Is it a balanced diet? Does it do no harm? And is it a complete solution? I hope that you can see that I've tried to the best of my abilities to make sure that the Mind Body Slim program ticks off all these boxes. Okay, so all right, on that note, we have come to the end of today's program. So I just wanted to recap for today's show. If you have enjoyed it, if you know of someone who might benefit from knowing more about different weight loss strategies, then please share it. And as Randall has mentioned, we are giving away 3 of his one-to-one martial arts this program that he does. So it is for anybody who will help to like this video, who will also tag 3 friends and continue to share it, right? So please do so, and we will announce the results in the next live show, which will be happening in 2 weeks' time. And this show, I would also like to announce the winner for the 3 keto bread mix, as we've mentioned. Thank you for sharing. The winners are Sherlyn T, Eileen Tan, as well as Yen Lim. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in. I'm so sorry. I know it's been a much longer show than I had anticipated. I hope that it was useful to you and you have gained some knowledge as well. So thank you for joining me today, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Okay, bye.